The Oregon Health Authority's Vaccine Education Module. This module does contain audio, so if possible, please ensure your speakers or headphones are on. Click Next to begin. Use the buttons on the bottom of each screen to go forward or back in the module. Click back if you want to review information on the previous page. Use the next buttons to go forward. You may also use the buttons below to play and pause the module or turn the sound on or off. Other instructions will be given when other options are available to you. Oregon parents who do not want their children to be vaccinated can claim a non-medical exemption to one or all school immunizations. Parents can print out a certificate after completing this e-module. Be sure you're at a computer with a printer. Then the certificate needs to be turned in to a child's school or daycare to document an exemption. Web browser warning. Do not use Google Chrome to view this module. Google Chrome no longer allows you to print the required certificate at the end. If you are currently using Google Chrome as your browser, please stop and open the module in another browser before you proceed. All other web browsers, for example Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, and Safari, are okay to use.
Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Cieslak, Medical Director of the Oregon Immunization Program and Communicable Disease Epidemiology Section. I'll be one of your guides today along this informational module on immunizations. Let's get started. Schools are places of learning, but they are also places where children can be exposed to a variety of communicable diseases. Children who are susceptible to these diseases can, in turn, transmit them to their classmates. Immunizations can prevent many of these infections, and for this reason, every state has laws requiring children to be immunized before they can go to school. Oregon law states that children must be immunized before attending public or private school, preschool, child care, or Head Start. By far, most Oregon parents keep their children up to date on their immunizations. 90% of Oregon kindergartners were up to date on their required vaccinations in the 2013-2014 school year. Some parents prefer that their children not be vaccinated. In Oregon, they can get exemptions from these school requirements. Vaccines have reduced dramatically many of the diseases once considered the bane of childhood, like smallpox, polio, measles, and tetanus. The prevention of disease by vaccines is considered one of the greatest achievements in health of the 20th century. Vaccines continue to reduce disease today. It's important for parents to have science-based information before immunizing their children or claiming exemption to school requirements for immunization. This e-module will cover how vaccines work and the risks and benefits of the vaccines required for children attending school, preschool, or child care in Oregon. Throughout this e-module, there will be opportunities to click on links to learn more about specific topics. If you have additional questions, we encourage you to talk to your healthcare provider. This e-module is based on information publicly available from the scientific literature, from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and from the Oregon Health Authority. After one is exposed to germs, for example viruses or bacteria, the body's immune system responds in a variety of ways to overcome them. One way the immune system responds is by making antibodies against specific molecules on the germs. These specific molecules are called antigens. Immune responses take time to develop, and the infected person often suffers from the illness and can transmit the infection before the immune system finally overcomes the germs. Afterwards, the immune system is primed, that is, prepared to respond more quickly the next time that person encounters the germ. Vaccines protect people from disease by priming the immune system against specific antigens on specific viruses and bacteria without the person having first to endure the illness.
Click here to watch a short video on how vaccines work.
A child's immune system is constantly responding to antigens, thousands and thousands of them, including those from germs that cause illness, and many that are harmless, such as those that might be found on the floor or in the carpet or in the soil. The ingredients in vaccines differ depending on the vaccine brand and what disease it protects against. For more information on vaccine-specific ingredients, click here. School and child care vaccine requirements help protect children against 11 different diseases. Some of these are more common than others, but all still exist and can be serious. These diseases are sometimes devastating for the people who get sick, their families, and their communities. We will cover the different diseases and the vaccines that prevent them in the sections about each vaccine. For optimal protection from disease, it is important to get the vaccines when recommended. More than 2.6 million doses of vaccine were given in Oregon in 2013. In the United States, vaccines must be licensed by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, before they can be given. Before granting approval, the FDA reviews data on each vaccine's safety and how well it can be expected to prevent the disease. The FDA may determine that the data are insufficient for licensure and demand that more trials be done before licensure can be considered. Once the FDA licenses a vaccine, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or ACIP, a group of medical professionals and scientists from across the country, recommends whether children should routinely get the vaccine. Before recommending a vaccine, the ACIP considers the safety and effectiveness of the vaccine, the severity of the disease, the number of children who get the disease if there is no vaccine, and the cost-effectiveness of the vaccine, that is, whether a vaccine can be considered worth its cost. Before a healthcare provider gives a vaccine, they must provide the parent with a vaccine information statement. The statement explains the risks and benefits of each vaccine. We Oregonians cherish our independent spirit, but we also care deeply about our neighbors. Vaccines protect the children who get them, but they also help protect communities from diseases. Some people cannot get vaccinated because of age or certain medical conditions. For example, babies less than 2 months of age are at very high risk for many infections, but are too young to be fully protected by vaccines. If enough people in a community are vaccinated, a disease has a much harder time spreading. So even people who can't be vaccinated and babies may benefit if others are less likely to have a disease to transmit to them. If an insufficient number of people in a community are vaccinated, babies, children with severe medical conditions, and people who cannot get vaccinated will be more likely to be exposed to the disease. Vaccines can protect your child, your family, and your community.
Immunization is widely accepted in the United States and around the world. National and international health organizations, including the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, recommend immunizations. If you have more questions after reviewing this vaccine information, we encourage you to talk to a healthcare provider. Click here to watch a short video featuring Dr. Jennifer Vines, a physician with Multnomah County and a mother. Or, to continue without watching the video, click Next.
Is Dr. Jennifer Vines. I'm a public health doctor with the county, and I'm also the mother of an infant son. And as a mom, my most important job is to keep my child safe. And as a physician, I know that vaccines are one of the most important ways to keep my son safe and make sure we keep preventable infections from circulating in the community. I've made sure to stick to the recommended schedule so that my child is protected from the right diseases at the right times and so that he doesn't miss any vaccines. I know some parents choose to space out vaccines, but I think that would be very hard to track as a busy working mom, and it's really not necessary because kids' immune systems can easily handle multiple vaccines at the same time. There's excellent science supporting the safety of vaccines, and the risks are minimal and almost always things like minor pain and swelling at the site of the injection. I don't believe at all that immunity from getting a disease is better than immunity from getting a vaccine, and I would never want my child to be sick with an illness that I can prevent by making sure he's vaccinated on time. For anyone who wants more information on vaccines, I strongly recommend going to the website of the Center for Disease Control, that's cdc.gov, and search vaccine.
Click on any or all of the links for additional information. When you are finished, click Next to continue. You have completed the introduction section of this module. Now you will be able to select one, any, or all of the vaccine-specific sections to view. Please note that only the sections you complete will be included on your completion certificate. Click Next to select your first vaccine section. Click the vaccine section you want to view. You can watch the sections in any order. Then, when you have finished watching the sections you want indicated on your completion certificate, click the button in the bottom right corner. If you've ever heard a baby with pertussis, you wouldn't quickly forget the sound of the whooping cough. Two vaccines protect against pertussis, as well as tetanus and diphtheria. These vaccines are called DTaP for children and Tdap for adolescents and adults. Pertussis, sometimes called whooping cough, is extremely contagious and is passed person to person through the air. Pertussis causes a cough that can last weeks and comes in fits of coughing that can make it difficult to breathe. In addition to coughing, some infants with the disease simply stop breathing. Infants are at risk for pertussis because they cannot be fully vaccinated yet. 83% of deaths from pertussis occur in babies under 3 months of age. Pertussis vaccines are effective, but not perfect. Getting pertussis immunity either from the disease or a vaccine does not provide lifelong protection. Among kids who get all 5 doses of DTaP on schedule, effectiveness is very high within the year following the 5th dose. At least 9 out of 10 kids are fully protected against pertussis. The effectiveness of the vaccine diminishes somewhat in each year following vaccination. Tdap vaccination is estimated to protect 7 out of 10 who receive the vaccine. Adolescents and adults need boosters for all 3 diseases: pertussis, tetanus, and diphtheria.
The most common complication and most common cause of death from pertussis is pneumonia, which occurs in 5% of all cases and 12% of cases in infants younger than 6 months of age. Other complications include seizures, ear infections, and dehydration. Severe coughing can lead to broken ribs. From 2004 to 2008, 111 people in the United States died from pertussis, and 83% of the deaths were among children 3 months of age or younger. Diphtheria is a contagious and potentially life-threatening bacterial infection that affects the nose, throat, and skin. The bacteria produce a toxin that can cause life-threatening swelling of the neck and can also affect the heart and nervous system. It is spread by coughing or sneezing. Because of routine vaccination, diphtheria is now rare in the United States. However, it remains common in some countries. In places where vaccination rates dropped, such as Russia, the number of cases rose dramatically. 5 to 10% of people who get diphtheria will die. Diphtheria is especially dangerous for children under 5 years of age and adults older than 40, with a fatality rate of up to 20% among these age groups. About 97 children out of every 100 who get all the recommended doses of DTaP vaccine will be protected against diphtheria. Tetanus is sometimes known as lockjaw. Tetanus is a serious disease that affects the body's muscles and nerves. In recent years, tetanus has been fatal in approximately 11% of reported cases. It often starts from a wound that becomes contaminated by bacteria that are found in soil. Unlike most vaccine-preventable diseases, tetanus is not transmitted by humans. That means that people are still at risk of the disease, even if everyone else in the community is vaccinated. Vaccination is nearly 100% effective in preventing tetanus. The vaccine cannot make you sick with pertussis, diphtheria, or tetanus. The DTaP vaccine is given to infants and young children in a series of 5 shots. The Tdap vaccine is recommended for people 11 years of age and older and needs only 1 shot. Getting diphtheria, tetanus, or pertussis disease is much riskier than getting DTaP or Tdap vaccine. However, a vaccine, like any medicine, is capable of causing side effects. Mild or moderate problems that commonly occur with DTaP or Tdap include some redness, tenderness, swelling, or pain where the shot was given. Tiredness, fussiness, nausea, stomachache, vomiting, diarrhea, poor appetite, headache, or fever may also occur. In about 1 out of every 30 children, the DTaP vaccine is followed by swelling of the entire arm or leg in which the shot was given. lasting 1 to 7 days. This problem occurs more often after the 4th or 5th doses of the DTaP series than after earlier doses. Swelling of the entire arm can occur after Tdap as well. Chills, body aches, sore joints, rash, swollen glands, seizures, nonstop crying, and a fever of more than 105 degrees Fahrenheit occur uncommonly after DTaP vaccination. Serious allergic reactions may occur after any vaccination in an estimated 1 out of a million doses. Very rarely, other severe problems have been reported after DTaP vaccine. These include long-term seizures, coma, or lowered consciousness and permanent brain damage. These have been so rare that it is hard to tell whether they were caused by the vaccine.
In some teenagers and adults, pertussis may resemble a bad cold. However, the disease can still be spread and have serious effects for others. Infants younger than 6 months of age are at high risk for complications from pertussis. These children cannot be fully vaccinated, but being surrounded by people who are vaccinated, such as family, friends, and neighbors, can protect them from the disease. Unvaccinated school children, parents, and grandparents are frequently the source of infection for infants. Recent outbreaks in California and Washington have raised awareness about pertussis, but many people still do not understand how serious the disease can be for infants. Tetanus can enter the body through any cut in the skin, even a tiny pinprick or scratch. However, deep puncture wounds or cuts, like those made by nails or knives, are a greater risk. Children can also get tetanus from severe burns, ear infections, tooth infections, or animal bites. Rusty nails are often blamed for causing tetanus, but it is the tetanus bacteria, and not the rust, that causes the disease. You can get tetanus from a shiny nail as easily as from a rusty one. In 2012, more than 900 cases of pertussis were reported in Oregon. This was almost 3 times the number of pertussis cases than in 2011, and the highest number of cases since 1953. 25 infants were hospitalized. 24 of them were 3 months old or younger.
Click here to watch a short video featuring Dr. John Chun discussing pertussis. Or to continue without watching the video, click next.
John Chun. I'm a pediatric infectious disease specialist. I work at Central Oregon Pediatric Associates in Bend, Oregon. Pertussis is a respiratory infection caused by a bacteria. So it is something that can be treated with antibiotics as opposed to some of the viral infections. It is particularly significant in children under the age of 1, especially under the age of 3 or 4 months. It can cause significant respiratory obstructions such that kids will actually stop breathing because of the thick secretions that accumulate in the large airways of their lung. It's also called whooping cough for a very specific reason. Kids will have infrequent, not frequent, but infrequent coughing. They may only cough once an hour, once every couple of hours, but when they cough, it is a sustained cough. Of course, with people being concerned about vaccines, there's been a surge of people not getting vaccinated. In the state of Oregon, we're currently running at the highest level that we have seen with pertussis in almost 50 years. My own experience with it, we've had one baby on a ventilator with it in the last few years who was very ill and had to be transferred to a tertiary care hospital. So I'd be happy not to see any more cases of this.
Click on any or all of the links for additional information. When you are finished, click Next to continue. Click the vaccine section you want to view. You can watch the sections in any order. Then, when you have finished watching the sections you want indicated on your completion certificate, click the button in the bottom right corner. Polio is a highly contagious viral disease that strikes the nerves and causes paralysis. Polio is spread from person to person by the fecal-oral route. Polio has declined by 99% across the globe since 1988. In 2013, there were 416 cases of polio reported in the world, as compared to the 350,000 cases in 1988. The decline in polio was possible because of vaccination. Polio is a serious disease that can cause paralysis. The polio vaccine used in the United States is very safe and effective. Polio disease is close to elimination in the world, in large part due to vaccines.
Polio used to be common in the United States. In the late 1940s to the early 1950s, in the United States alone, polio crippled around 35,000 people each year, making it one of the most feared diseases of the 20th century. Thanks to the vaccines developed by Drs. Jonas Salk and Albert Sabin, parents were able to protect their children from polio in the U.S. The last case in the United States was in 1979, and vaccination has eliminated the disease from South America as well. Polio is no longer seen as a threat in the entire Western Hemisphere. Unfortunately, it has not been eradicated everywhere. The spread of polio has never stopped in Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Pakistan. The polio virus has been reintroduced and continues to spread in other countries in Africa where it had previously been stopped. As a result of Syria's civil war, children have lost access to vaccines, and polio cases began to reappear there in 2013. There is no cure for polio, so preventing it through vaccination is the key to staying polio-free. Most people who get the polio virus have only minor symptoms like fever, headache, nausea, muscle stiffness, and fatigue, but they can still pass the virus to others. Approximately 1% of polio victims suffer permanent paralysis. Most victims of such paralysis experience it in their arms or legs, leading to a lifelong disability. When paralysis affects the breathing muscles, it can be fatal. The vaccine used in the United States since 2000 is called inactivated polio vaccine, or IPV. IPV is given as an injection. After receiving at least 3 doses of the polio vaccine, 99% of children develop protection against the disease. A 4th dose, a booster, is given between the ages of 4 and 6 to ensure protection against polio. The most common side effects of the inactivated polio vaccine are minor, and usually include a sore spot or a red dot where the shot was given on the arm or leg. Rarely, serious allergic reactions occur. This vaccine has not been known to cause other serious problems.
The inactivated polio vaccine cannot give a child polio because the virus is killed. The oral polio vaccine, which is no longer used in the U.S., used a weakened live version of the virus. The oral polio vaccine caused about 1 case of vaccine-associated paralytic polio for every 2.4 million doses given. The oral polio vaccine has not been used in the U.S. since 2000. Since 1988, the Global Polio Eradication Initiative has worked to eradicate polio. In 1988, more than 125 countries had widespread polio, with an estimated 350,000 children paralyzed by polio each year, nearly 1,000 a day. Today, there are only a handful of countries where polio is still found, and only a few hundred cases are identified each year. The World Health Organization, Rotary International, CDC, UNICEF, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are all major partners in the initiative to eliminate polio from our planet. To learn more about the efforts to eradicate polio, go to polioeradication.org.
Click on any or all of the links for additional information. When you are finished, click Next to continue. Click the vaccine section you want to view. You can watch the sections in any order. Then, when you have finished watching the sections you want indicated on your completion certificate, click the button in the bottom right corner. Chickenpox, also called varicella, is sometimes considered a fairly harmless disease or a childhood rite of passage. However, before the varicella vaccine was routinely given, chickenpox infections resulted in over 10,000 hospitalizations and 100 to 150 deaths each year in the United States alone. That's 2 to 3 deaths a week. It's impossible to know which children might suffer a particularly severe case or experience complications if they get chickenpox. The older you get, the greater the risk of complications from chickenpox. Most people who get chickenpox vaccine will be protected from chickenpox, but if they do get chickenpox, it's milder than if the person had not been vaccinated. They will generally have fewer blisters, be less likely to develop a fever, and recover faster, missing fewer days of work or school.
Chickenpox is a very contagious disease caused by a virus. The first symptom of chickenpox is usually an itchy, uncomfortable rash. Chickenpox can also cause tiredness, headache, and a fever that lasts several days. As many as 500 blisters may appear on the skin. If a blister becomes infected, lifelong scarring can result. Rarely, severe and potentially fatal staph or strep infections can start from infected blisters. A person with chickenpox can spread the disease starting 1 or 2 days before the rash appears. A person is contagious until all the blisters crust over, which usually takes about 5 days. About 90% of people who are not immune and have close contact with a person who has the disease will get chickenpox. The chickenpox virus is the same virus that causes shingles. This virus is a member of the herpes virus family. After a bout of chickenpox, the virus lives in the nerve cells for the rest of one's life, and it can re-emerge years or decades later to cause the painful rash known as shingles. The varicella vaccine is a live attenuated vaccine. This means that the virus is still alive, but has been weakened so that it won't cause chickenpox. However, it will still trigger the immune system to build antibodies against chickenpox. The vaccine was licensed by the FDA for use in the United States in March 1995. 2 doses of the vaccine are about 98% effective at preventing chickenpox. The vaccine, like any medicine, can have side effects. After chickenpox vaccination, these may include fever, a mild rash up to 1 month after vaccination, and a sore arm. The fever may cause a seizure in 1 out of 2,500 children. Serious allergic reactions occur rarely. Other serious problems, including severe brain reactions and low blood count, have been reported after chickenpox vaccination, but they have been so rare that experts cannot tell whether they were caused by the vaccine or not. Getting the chickenpox vaccine is much safer than getting chickenpox disease. Most people who get the chickenpox vaccine don't have any problems with it.
While many children may experience chickenpox as a mild illness, it is often quite uncomfortable and occasionally serious. Before the vaccine, 10,000 people a year ended up in the hospital because of chickenpox. Barbara Walters was hospitalized for chickenpox when she contracted it at age 83. From 1990 through 1996, an average of 103 deaths from chickenpox were reported each year in the U.S. Since routine use of chickenpox vaccine began in this country, the number of hospitalizations and deaths from chickenpox has declined more than 90%. Unfortunately, there is simply no way to predict whether a given person will have a mild or severe case of chickenpox. Also, there is no way to know whether a person has chickenpox until the rash appears. Before the rash is seen, an infected person can unknowingly expose others, who might include infants too young to be vaccinated, pregnant women, immunocompromised children, and the elderly. These are the people who are most likely to suffer serious complications. Cases, hospitalizations, and deaths from chickenpox have decreased substantially since the introduction of varicella vaccine in the United States.
Click on any or all of the links for additional information. When you are finished, click Next to continue. Click the vaccine section you want to view. You can watch the sections in any order. Then, when you have finished watching the sections you want indicated on your completion certificate, click the button in the bottom right corner. 50 years ago, most children became sick with measles and mumps, then very common diseases. Rubella was not as common, but resulted in grave health problems. Today, many doctors have never seen cases of these diseases, thanks in large part to vaccines. The MMR vaccine protects against 3 diseases: measles, mumps, and rubella. These diseases still exist in the world. Thousands of cases have occurred in recent years in Europe and Asia, where vaccination rates have been lower than in the United States.
Most well known of these diseases is measles. The measles virus is highly contagious and spreads through the air. Measles causes a rash to break out all over the body. It also causes a runny nose, fever, and a cough. About 1 in 10 children with measles will end up with an ear infection, and 1 in 20 children will get pneumonia. More than 99% of people who receive 2 doses of measles vaccine, with the first dose no earlier than 12 months of age, have evidence of measles immunity. Likewise, mumps is a contagious disease also caused by a virus. When a child gets mumps, it usually starts with a fever, headache, sore muscles, tiredness, loss of appetite, and severe swelling of the glands in the neck and behind the ears. Mumps can cause serious complications, such as permanent deafness, which occurs in about 1 out of every 20,000 cases, inflammation of the testicles in adolescent or older males, and inflammation of the ovaries in adolescent or older females. The most serious complication of mumps is encephalitis, which is an inflammation of the brain. Encephalitis occurs in about 2 out of every 100,000 mumps cases. 2 doses of MMR vaccine are 88% effective in preventing mumps. The last disease against which the MMR vaccine protects people is rubella. It is also caused by a virus. Although it is generally a mild infection in children, causing fever, rash, and swollen glands, rubella is especially dangerous for pregnant women. In pregnant women, it can cause miscarriage or severe birth defects in the baby, known as congenital rubella syndrome. Children suffering from congenital rubella syndrome can be born with physical and mental disabilities, defects of the heart, deafness, blindness, and problems with their internal organs. In clinical trials, 95% or more of those vaccinated had evidence of rubella immunity after 1 dose. Measles, mumps, and rubella are all caused by viruses. That means that once a child is infected, there is little a healthcare provider can do but to keep them comfortable and to try to treat the symptoms. Antibiotics do not work against these diseases, and there is no cure for them. Getting better takes time, and for parents this can mean taking days or weeks off from work to stay home and care for a sick child. All 3 of these diseases, measles, mumps, and rubella, can be prevented by the MMR vaccine. At least 2 injections are required to provide maximum immunity. The first dose should be administered to children 12 to 15 months of age, and the second dose at 4 to 6 years of age. Like any medicine, the MMR vaccine can cause side effects, but the risk of the MMR vaccine causing serious harm is very small. Getting the vaccine is much safer than getting measles, mumps, or rubella, and most children who get the MMR vaccine do not have any problems with it. The most common side effects are minor and may include fever, mild rash, or swelling of the neck glands. If these side effects occur, it is usually within 6 to 14 days after getting the shot. Up to 1 out of every 4 teenage or adult women who receive the vaccine will experience temporary discomfort and stiffness in the joints. Other moderate and severe problems are uncommon. These can include seizure caused by fever or temporary low blood platelet count. Serious allergic reactions occur in less than 1 out of every 1,000,000 doses administered. Very rarely, other severe problems have been reported after a child gets the MMR vaccine. These have included deafness, long-term seizures or coma, and permanent brain damage. However, these have been so rare that it is hard to tell whether they were actually caused by the vaccine.
Several large studies reviewing hundreds of thousands of vaccinations given have concluded that there is no link between MMR and autism. Click the link to read more about these studies. Measles is still common in many parts of the world, including some countries in Europe, Asia, the Pacific, and Africa. Travelers with measles continue to bring the disease into the United States. Measles can spread when it reaches a community in the U.S. where groups of people are unvaccinated. In the first 5 months of 2014, over 300 measles cases were reported in the U.S. Most of these people who got measles had been unvaccinated. 5 of these cases were in Oregon.
Click here to watch a short video featuring Dr. John Chun discussing measles. Or to continue without watching the video, click next.
John Chun. I'm a pediatric infectious disease specialist. I work at Central Oregon Pediatric Associates in Bend, Oregon. It is a disease that I essentially watched almost, and I say almost, disappear. In my medical student training in the early 70s, we did still see cases of it, as well as my residency training in the early 70s. I saw a couple of cases of it here when I came to Bend in 1976, over the first few years I was here, but it very quickly disappeared because of the effectiveness of the vaccine. Herd immunity is very poor for measles. If you have 100 people in a room, 98 of them are immunized, one of them has measles, and the other one is not immunized, he's going to get it. So it is a disease that we need 100% protection. And with 100% protection, if the entire world was immunized, this would be a disease that would disappear, much as smallpox has. It can be a very serious illness. It can result in meningitis. It can result in encephalitis, which is an inflammation of the brain that can be not only fatal, but if you survive, result in significant permanent disability afterwards. It can cause pneumonias, and even the primary disease, without the complications, in and of itself, is serious. It makes you very ill for several days, and if you don't believe it, ask your grandmothers, ask your great-grandmothers. They remember taking care of children who had measles, and they can tell you how serious it was.
Click on any or all of the links for additional information. When you are finished, click Next to continue. Hepatitis B is a serious disease caused by a virus and is spread by contact with the blood and bodily fluids of an infected person. The virus attacks the liver. Hepatitis B can be passed from person to person in many ways, including sharing items like toothbrushes or razors, direct contact with an open sore of an infected person, injection drug use, sexual activity, or from mother to child at birth. Many people who have hepatitis B don't know they have it and have no symptoms. These people can unknowingly spread the disease to unvaccinated children. At least 50% of the children who have hepatitis B infection do not have symptoms, but many will develop serious problems later in life from the infection.
Hepatitis B infection can be acute or chronic. Acute hepatitis B is a short-term illness that occurs within the first 6 months after you are exposed to the virus. Acute infection can, but does not always, lead to chronic infection. Chronic hepatitis B infection is a long-term illness that occurs when the hepatitis B virus remains in your body. Approximately 25% of persons with chronic hepatitis B will develop cirrhosis or cancer of the liver, either of which is often fatal. Infants are at much higher risk of developing chronic hepatitis B. Up to 90% of infants who acquire hepatitis B virus from their mothers at birth become chronically infected. For children who become infected with hepatitis B between 1 year and 5 years of age, 30 to 50% become chronically infected. The hepatitis B vaccine cannot cause hepatitis B infection. It prevents a person from getting hepatitis B and is most effective for infants, children, and adolescents. After receiving 3 doses of hepatitis B vaccine, 95% of people in these age groups have lifetime protection from hepatitis B disease. Like any medicine, hepatitis B vaccine can cause side effects, but the risk of the vaccine causing serious harm is extremely small. More than 100 million people in the United States have been vaccinated with the hepatitis B vaccine. Some mild problems have been reported, such as soreness at the site of the shot among 1 in every 4 people, and about 1 person in every 15 will get a temperature of 99.9 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. Severe allergic reactions occur about once for every 1.1 million doses of hepatitis B vaccine administered.
Some people think that hepatitis B is only transmitted sexually or through IV drug use. It is true that hepatitis B spreads in these ways, but young children contract the hepatitis B virus through other means. Hepatitis B virus can survive outside the body for up to 7 days. This means that the virus can be transmitted through direct contact with blood that contains the virus. The rates of acute hepatitis B infections continue to decline in Oregon, a decline that started here after the current hepatitis B vaccine was licensed in 1986. Routine vaccination of infants, children, and adolescents began in 1991. From 1990 to 2004, the incidence of acute hepatitis B in the United States declined 94% among children and adolescents.
Click on any or all of the links for additional information. When you are finished, click Next to continue. Click the vaccine section you want to view. You can watch the sections in any order. Then, when you have finished watching the sections you want indicated on your completion certificate, click the button in the bottom right corner. Hepatitis A is a liver disease caused by a virus. You can get hepatitis A from an infected person or after eating or drinking contaminated food or water. Before the vaccine was available, Oregon's rate of hepatitis A was twice the average rate of the rest of the country. Since the vaccine became available, rates in Oregon and the rest of the United States have decreased dramatically. One can get hepatitis A through everyday activities like changing diapers, preparing or eating unwashed food, poor hand washing, or eating food made by an infected person. Children with the disease often have no symptoms, but they can still infect others. In fact, children can spread the disease for up to 2 weeks before developing any symptoms and for up to 10 weeks afterward. Unlike children, most adults who catch hepatitis A will have symptoms of the disease.
Hepatitis A causes flu-like symptoms such as fever and tiredness, nausea, severe stomach pain, and diarrhea. But the hallmark of the disease is yellowing of the skin and eyes and dark urine. These are caused by the virus attacking the liver. The symptoms often go away within a couple of weeks, but for some people it can take months to recover fully. 10 to 15% of people have relapses for up to 6 months after becoming sick. 1 in 5 people who get hepatitis A will require hospitalization. In rare cases, it may lead to a need for a liver transplant. Hepatitis A vaccine is very effective. Studies show that 94 to 100% of people will be protected after receiving hepatitis A vaccine. Hepatitis A vaccine is quite safe. About half of the people who get it will have no side effects at all. The other half report having mild side effects, including a sore arm or redness at the site of the shot. Less often, people may have headache, loss of appetite, or tiredness after vaccination. These side effects usually last for 1 or 2 days. Allergic reactions are very rare. No serious adverse reactions have been confirmed for the hepatitis A vaccine.
Some people believe hepatitis A vaccine is not needed for young children since, even if they get hepatitis A, they will probably not get sick. However, children can pass the disease to others, even if they do not have any symptoms. In 1995, before the vaccine was developed and recommended, 2,927 cases of hepatitis A were reported in Oregon, compared to the 9 cases in 2012. Others believe that the hepatitis A vaccine isn't necessary because they practice good hygiene. The truth is that even when we practice good hygiene, we can come into contact with the virus from others whose hygiene is not so good, at restaurants or grocery stores, in schools or child care centers, in other public spaces, and even in our own home from frozen, prepared, or fresh foods. Recently, there was an outbreak of hepatitis A from eating frozen berries. The berries made 162 people sick in 10 states. 71 of them were admitted to the hospital. 11 of the ill people were unvaccinated children. It only takes a small amount of hepatitis A virus to make you sick.
Click on any or all of the links for additional information. When you are finished, click Next to continue. Click the vaccine section you want to view. You can watch the sections in any order. Then, when you have finished watching the sections you want indicated on your completion certificate, click the button in the bottom right corner. Haemophilus influenzae type B, also known as HIB or HIB, was once a notorious cause of serious illness and death in infants and young children. With a vaccine, the disease is no longer common in the United States. Young children are most at risk for getting sick with Hib disease. Hib disease is uncommon in children older than 5 years. Before the Hib vaccine, about 20,000 children younger than 5 years developed some form of invasive Hib disease each year, and 1,000 children died. It was the leading cause of bacterial meningitis among children younger than 5 years in the United States. Since Hib vaccination began, the number of cases of invasive Hib disease has decreased by 99%.
Hib bacteria are passed to others through coughing and sneezing. The bacteria live in the nose and throat and can remain there for months. If Hib bacteria spread to a child's lungs or bloodstream, serious illness can occur. This is called invasive Hib disease and can cause meningitis, an infection of the brain and spinal cord coverings that is almost always fatal unless antibiotics are given promptly. Invasive Hib disease can also lead to epiglottitis, an infection and swelling in the throat which can completely block the airway, making it impossible to breathe. Other serious complications include infections of the joints, bones, skin, and heart sac. 1 in 5 children with invasive Hib disease who survive the infection will have permanent complications like brain damage, seizures, paralysis, or hearing loss. The Hib vaccine is very effective at preventing Hib disease. More than 95% of infants will be protected after receiving the recommended doses of vaccine. It is uncommon for a completely vaccinated child to contract Hib disease. Most infants and children do not have any problems with the Hib vaccine. Redness, warmth, or swelling where the shot was given may occur. Reactions like fever and fussiness are uncommon. Serious reactions like an allergic reaction are rare.
Some people believe that Hib disease can be prevented by having good hygiene. However, it's nearly impossible to be sure that a child will never be close to another child when they sneeze or cough. And since a child with Hib may not appear sick, you may not even know your child has been exposed until they become ill. Also, if a child carries Hib bacteria in their nose or throat but are not sick, they may pass the disease to babies or other people. Some believe that since Hib disease is uncommon today in the United States, there is little risk of children getting the disease even if they are not vaccinated. While Hib vaccine has reduced the disease in the United States, the vaccine is not available in many other countries. In these areas, Hib is still a major cause of lower respiratory infections.
Click here to watch a short video featuring Dr. John Chun discussing Hib. Or to continue without watching the video, click Next.
My name is John Chun. I'm a pediatric infectious disease specialist. I work at Central Oregon Pediatric Associates in Bend, Oregon. HIV can gain access to the bloodstream and spread throughout the body and cause several very serious diseases. The most common was meningitis, but it can also cause pneumonia, swelling of that little flap in the throat that helps you keep from aspirating food into your lungs. It's called the epiglottis. When that gets swollen, that's called epiglottitis. It can also cause infections in the bones and in the joints of the body. So it can cause very serious illnesses. In fact, in our experience as pediatricians in the 70s and the 80s, Haemophilus, or HIV meningitis, was the most common serious illness that we faced routinely in our practice. Central Oregon, we would see about 10 patients a year with it, almost one a month.
Click on any or all of the links for additional information. When you are finished, click Next to continue. Would you like to create a certificate indicating that you viewed this e-module?